What if I told you that some of the most profitable plants in the world are not rare, protected, or hidden in distant countries, but quietly growing in places most people overlook every day? We live in an age where income is tied to complexity. Apps, platforms, trends, and systems that change faster than people can adapt. Yet for thousands of years, wealth was built very differently. It was slow, predictable, rooted in land, seasons, and plants that solved real problems for real people. This wasn't accidental knowledge. Farmers, healers, traders, and entire civilizations relied on plants that created steady demand generation after generation. But as modern convenience replaced patience, many of these plants faded from attention, not because they stopped working, but because they were no longer marketed. Today, those same plants still grow, they still produce, and in the right context, they can still be remarkably profitable. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 10 plants most people never think about as income generators. Each one has a long history of use, growing modern interest, and a reason it was quietly forgotten. One of them, number 7, was once traded as a strategic resource, and its value shaped regional economies. And number 10 doesn't just belong on this list. It explains why these plants matter in the first place. Stay with me until the end, because this will change how you think about land, value, and long-term opportunity. And if you appreciate thoughtful, grounded knowledge like this, you're welcome to subscribe, not for trends, but for perspective. Number 1. Comfrey, often called the green gold patch. For a long time, Comfrey wasn't seen as something special, and that was exactly its power. Grandparents planted it at the edge of gardens, farmers kept it near barns, healers grew it quietly, never advertising it, never needing to. Once Comfrey was planted, it stayed, and it kept producing. What made Comfrey different wasn't speed, it was reliability. This plant sends a deep taproot far below the surface, reaching minerals other plants can't access. Generation after generation noticed the same thing. Comfrey grew fast, grew back quickly after cutting, and seemed almost impossible to exhaust. Modern research supports this observation. Studies suggest Comfrey concentrates nutrients like potassium, calcium, and trace minerals in its leaves. The cause and effect is simple. Deep roots pull nutrients up, leaves store them. And that's why Comfrey became so valuable across completely different uses. Today, people who understand Comfrey don't grow acres of it. They grow small, intentional patches. It's used as a compost activator, a natural fertilizer, an ingredient in traditional topical products, and even in specialty gardening markets. A single plant can be harvested multiple times a season, dried, processed, or sold to niche buyers who already know its reputation. So why did Comfrey disappear from mainstream conversations? Because it doesn't fit modern systems. It spreads too easily. It can't be patented, and it doesn't require constant purchasing once it's established. There's no recurring product to sell, just a plant that keeps giving. Most people walk past Comfrey without realizing they're looking at a long-term asset. Think of Comfrey like a quiet income stream you plant once and maintain lightly. It doesn't impress at first glance, but over time it earns its place. And once you understand why Comfrey works, the next plant on this list becomes even more interesting, because it solves a completely different problem in a completely different way. Number 2. Elderberry, often called the backyard apothecary. For centuries, elderberry was never planted for decoration. It was planted for preparedness. In European villages, shrubs were grown near homes for a reason. Native communities preserved the berries seasonally. Even during times of scarcity, elderberry remained part of household planning, not emergency reaction. What made elderberry valuable wasn't just the fruit, it was timing. Elderberry ripens when many other crops are finished. Late summer into early fall, when fields slow down, elderberry steps forward. That alone made it strategically important. Modern research suggests elderberries contain naturally occurring compounds that support the body's normal immune response. That helps explain why demand has steadily grown in recent years, especially in small-batch wellness and specialty food markets. The interest didn't come from advertising, it came from people searching for familiar, trusted ingredients. Elderberry works because it solves multiple problems at once. The shrubs are hardy, they produce heavily. The berries dry well, freeze well, and store well. A single harvest can be sold fresh, dried, or processed into syrups, teas, or concentrates, each serving a slightly different audience. Most people who grow elderberry do it simply. A few bushes, 1 or 2 harvests per year, sold locally or directly to buyers who already understand its value. No complicated infrastructure, no aggressive scaling, so why did elderberry fade from everyday awareness? Because it's seasonal, it doesn't fit year-round supermarket expectations. And it thrives best in small, decentralized systems, not industrial ones. Most people think elderberry is just a wild shrub. Think of it instead as a seasonal income window that opens every year, right on schedule, and once you understand that timing advantage, the next plant on the list starts to feel surprisingly powerful, because it doesn't rely on function alone, but on emotion. Number 3. Lavender, often called the calm economy. Lavender has survived every major shift in human history. For one simple reason, people never stopped needing calm. Long before it was decorative, lavender was functional. Roman bathhouses infused it into daily rituals. Medieval households dried it for storage. Traders moved it because it held value without spoiling. What made lavender different wasn't yield, it was consistency. Even small plots produced something light, durable, and widely recognizable. Farmers didn't need scale, they needed reputation. Modern research suggests lavender's aroma may support relaxation and stress reduction, which explains why demand remains stable even when trends change. When the world becomes louder, interest in calm increases, and lavender benefits quietly from that cycle. Lavender works because it concentrates value into small forms. A single harvest can become dried bundles, oils, sachets, soaps, teas, or decorative goods. It stores well, it ships easily, and it appeals to both practical buyers and emotional ones. Most people use lavender simply and safely, compact rows, 1 or 2 harvests per season. Sold directly to customers who already associate it with quality, comfort, and trust. So why do people underestimate lavender as an income plant? Because it feels familiar, decorative, almost too gentle to be taken seriously. Large-scale agriculture ignored it, and small growers assumed it wasn't worth the effort. But lavender doesn't chase attention. Think of it like a steady demand signal that never turns off. And before we move forward, if you enjoy learning about overlooked plants and sharing grounded knowledge like this, consider subscribing and pressing the bell icon. Not to follow trends, but to keep this kind of information from disappearing. Now, the next plant on the list surprises people because it looks ordinary, yet behaves very differently. Number 4, Calendula. Often called the skin grower, Calendula has always existed in the background of human history. Not as a luxury, not as a status symbol, but as something quietly relied upon. Monastic gardens grew it alongside food. Village healers kept it close. Farmers scattered it through fields without thinking twice. What made Calendula valuable was repetition. It didn't bloom once and disappear. It kept producing, again and again. And over time, people noticed that this ordinary-looking flower solved a very specific problem. Modern research suggests Calendula contains naturally occurring compounds that may support skin comfort and recovery. That helps explain why it appears so often in gentle skincare, salves, and topical formulations today. The science didn't create demand. It explained why it never went away. Calendula works because it turns time into output. Once established, it flowers continuously through the season. Each harvest dries easily, stores well, and moves smoothly into small-batch cosmetic, herbal, and specialty wellness markets. Most people grow calendula with minimal effort. A small patch, hand-harvested flowers, sold dried or used in simple value-added products. No heavy machinery, no complex infrastructure. So why did calendula fade from mainstream awareness? Because it looks ordinary. It grows too easily. And modern systems tend to overlook anything that doesn't signal value immediately. Most people see a flower, think of calendula as a renewable resource that keeps refilling itself quietly, and from here the list begins to shift. The next plant doesn't just grow reliably, it rewards those willing to think years ahead. Number 5. Ginseng, often called the patience crop. For centuries, ginseng was never treated like a normal plant. It was protected, tracked, passed down through families. Appalachian growers learned where it thrived and rarely spoke about it openly. In Asia, entire trade systems were built around its value. What made ginseng powerful wasn't speed, it was time. The longer it remained in the ground, the more valuable it became. People understood that harvesting too early meant losing most of its potential. Modern research suggests ginseng contains compounds that may support energy balance and stress response, which helps explain why demand has remained strong across cultures for hundreds of years. Interest in ginseng didn't fade, access did. Ginseng works because it turns patience into profit. A small woodland patch left undisturbed can quietly appreciate year after year. Unlike seasonal crops, it doesn't reset, it accumulates. Most people who grow ginseng today do so carefully and legally, cultivating it in shaded forest environments, harvesting only mature roots, and selling through regulated markets that value authenticity and age. So why does ginseng intimidate most growers? Because it asks for long-term thinking, years instead of months, restraint instead of activity. And modern culture rarely rewards waiting. Most people want fast returns. Think of ginseng like an investment you plant and forget, until time does the work for you. And now, the list moves into a different category entirely. The next one isn't planted in rows or fields. It thrives where almost nothing else will. Number 6. Mushrooms, often called the shadow harvest. For most of human history, mushrooms weren't grown in fields or planted in rows. They were gathered quietly by people who understood timing, moisture, and patience. Families passed that knowledge down carefully. Soldiers relied on dried mushrooms because they stored well. Monks cultivated them in dark spaces long before indoor farming had a name. What makes mushrooms unusual is where they thrive. They don't need sunlight in the traditional sense. They don't compete with crops. Instead, they turn what most systems discard, wood waste, agricultural byproducts, unused space, into food and income. Modern research suggests many edible and functional mushrooms contain compounds that support nutrition and overall wellness. That explains why chefs, specialty growers, and small producers have brought mushrooms back into focus, not as a trend, but as a solution. Mushrooms work because they compress production time. A single setup can produce multiple harvests in a short period, often in spaces that would otherwise sit idle. Basements, sheds, shaded areas, places nothing else grows become productive. People grow mushrooms carefully and legally, focusing on approved edible varieties and following food safety standards. Harvests are sold fresh, dried or powdered to restaurants, local markets, and specialty buyers who value consistency. So why were mushrooms ignored for so long? Because they're invisible. They grow out of sight. They don't look impressive until harvest, and they don't fit traditional farming expectations. Most people see darkness as limitation. Think of mushrooms as value that appears where no one else is looking. And now, we reach the plant teased earlier, the one that once shaped economies and defined infrastructure. Number 7. hemp, often called the strategic plant. Hemp wasn't just a crop. For centuries it was infrastructure. Entire economies relied on it. Naval powers required it for ropes and sails. Traders moved it across continents. Governments encouraged farmers to grow it because it was essential, not optional. In some regions, hemp was as valuable as silver. And yet, most people today have no idea why. What made hemp extraordinary wasn't hype, it was versatility. Every part of the plant had a purpose: fibers for textiles and construction, seeds for food and oil. Even the inner stalk, called hurd, fed industries that could never be replaced by a single alternative. It was an entire supply chain grown from one plant. Modern research supports what people have known for centuries. Hemp produces strong, sustainable fibers and nutritious seeds. It's resilient, low maintenance, and remarkably adaptable. That's why it's quietly seeing a resurgence in regulated markets, from sustainable building materials to wellness products. Hemp works because it multiplies value. One crop serves multiple industries simultaneously, creating diverse revenue streams. People grow it today responsibly, following legal guidelines, focusing on industrial uses, and harvesting different parts for specialized markets. So why did it disappear from common knowledge? Politics, convenience, and synthetic alternatives replaced it. Hemp wasn't ineffective, it was inconvenient for industrial systems built around uniformity and control. It's rare for a plant to be both essential and almost forgotten at the same time. Think of hemp like infrastructure disguised as a plant. Invisible when it's there, impossible to replace when it's gone. And from here, the final three plants don't just offer profit, they offer leverage. The next one grows faster than almost anything else on Earth. Number 8. Bamboo, often called the vertical forest. Bamboo isn't just a plant, it's a natural powerhouse. In many parts of the world, people never saw it as a crop, they saw it as a building material that grows itself. Entire villages relied on bamboo for homes, tools, fences, and even water systems. Some cultures built economies around how quickly it could regenerate. It was nature's infrastructure. What makes bamboo remarkable is speed and resilience. Certain species can grow over 3 feet in a single day. That's faster than almost anything else on Earth. Modern studies confirm bamboo's strength, durability, and versatility, making it ideal for construction, textiles, packaging, and sustainable manufacturing. Bamboo works because it multiplies itself. Once planted, it keeps producing. Poles, shoots, leaves, every part has a use. Farmers or small growers can manage it with minimal effort, harvesting sustainably year after year without replanting. That's a level of efficiency few other plants offer. People use bamboo today in practical, legal ways, choosing non-invasive varieties, managing growth carefully, and selling poles, shoots, or processed materials to markets that value sustainability and quality. It's low maintenance, reliable, and surprisingly profitable if you understand its rhythm. So why don't more people think about bamboo as an income source? Because it feels too large, too slow to start for short-term planners. And modern agriculture rarely values anything that doesn't fit annual cycles or quick returns. Think of bamboo like a living factory. It works quietly, grows itself, and keeps producing value long after planting. And now the list enters its final stretch. The next plant is small, delicate, and incredibly concentrated, the kind of crop that has been called red gold for centuries. Number 9. Saffron, often called the red gold threads. Saffron isn't measured by acres, it's measured by hand. For thousands of years, traders carried it across deserts and mountains. Healers prized it. Kings taxed it. Entire economies were influenced by tiny threads harvested one by one. And yet most people today walk past saffron without realizing its value. What makes saffron remarkable isn't its color, it's its density. Just a few grams can fetch more than its weight in silver. Modern research confirms what ancient cultures already knew. Saffron contains compounds that may support mood and wellness, making it valuable across culinary, cosmetic, and health markets. But it's the scarcity and labor behind it that drives its price, not hype. Saffron works because almost nothing else can compete. A small plot produces threads that are intensely concentrated in value. Harvesting is delicate, requiring patience and precision. But that careful attention turns a tiny flower into a global commodity. People grow saffron carefully, planting bulbs, tending them over months, and harvesting stigmas by hand. Each harvest is sold into markets that recognize authenticity and quality. It's a crop that rewards focus, skill, and timing, rather than scale. So why do most people overlook it? Because saffron looks small, fragile, and inefficient. Modern agriculture favors large, fast returns. Saffron requires patience, meticulous care, and attention to detail, qualities that don't fit mass production. Think of saffron like a vault you grow in the soil, tiny, quiet, and unbelievably powerful. And now we arrive at the final plant, the one that ties this entire list together, showing us that the most profitable plants aren't about rarity or hype, but about systems, time, and compounding value. Number 10. Perennials. Often called the compounding garden, perennials aren't flashy. They don't promise instant results. But for thousands of years, people relied on them to quietly generate wealth, nutrition, and stability. Orchards, hedgerows, herb patches, and forest gardens were designed to last decades, not seasons. Farmers didn't chase speed, they planned for continuity. What makes perennials extraordinary is their ability to compound value over time. Modern research shows that perennial systems reduce labor, stabilize soil, and improve long-term yields compared to annual crops. But the real insight isn't science, it's patience. One planting becomes a system that keeps giving year after year. Perennials work because they mimic the way wealth actually grows. You invest once, maintain lightly, and let nature do the rest. Herbs, fruits, roots, even fibers, all mature and produce steadily, creating returns that accumulate rather than reset. Small-scale growers can mix income plants with food plants, designing land for decades instead of months, and turn once dormant plots into long-term income streams. People use perennials carefully and safely. They plan for maturity, harvest when appropriate, and benefit from systems that increasingly reinforce themselves. The reward comes from foresight, not hype. So why were they forgotten? Because modern thinking prioritizes speed and convenience. Perennials demand patience, planning, and restraint, qualities that the short-term economy rarely values. Think of perennials like a mindset, not just a crop. A way of seeing land as a partner, not a resource. A way of investing in time, consistency, and compounding returns. And that brings us full circle. What if the most profitable plants weren't about rarity, hype, or trends, but about patience, overlooked wisdom, and systems that quietly generate value for years? Which of these 10 surprised you most? Let me know in the comments. And if you value this kind of grounded long-term thinking, consider subscribing, pressing the bell icon, and joining the community that keeps knowledge like this alive. All of these plants share one key principle. Real value grows quietly, steadily, and over time. They remind us that patience, knowledge, and overlooked wisdom often matter more than speed or trends. Which of these 10 plants surprised you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you want to keep discovering these hidden opportunities, don't forget to subscribe and press the bell icon so you never miss a video.